Blog Talk Radio.
It was a creed written into the founding documents that declares the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed the trail toward freedom. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It was sung by immigrants as they struck out the distant shores, pioneers who pushed westward against unforgiving wilderness. Oh, yes, we can. It was the call of workers organized, women who reached for the ballot, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier, and a king who took us to the mountaintop, pointed the way to the promised land. Yes, we can to justice and equality. Yes, we can.
Several days of deliberations and several questions. This final answer from the jury.
Right, and this just came down minutes ago. I just got out of the courthouse, and the prosecution made the announcement inside that courtroom they will retry this case. District Attorney Kevin Steele stood up outside of the presence of the jury. They had just left. The judge asked him the question, and he said yes. So it will be within 120 days, 4 months, with the prosecution already making that decision. I sat in court. The judge told the entire gallery, including Andrea Constand, her mother was there, before the jury even came in, that the jury was deadlocked, that they had provided a note saying they were hopelessly deadlocked. I watched the jury file in. They were solemn, stoic. I didn't see a lot of emotion. I saw one male juror as he entered the room look straight at Andrea Constand as she was sitting in her seat. I saw a female juror after she was seated look straight at Andrea Constand. And then the judge polled them one by one, asking them a simple question. Is the jury hopelessly deadlocked? Juror number 1 stood up, who was the foreperson, a woman. Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, all the way down the line. The courtroom was silent. The judge had forewarned the courtroom what the decision was, so there was no outburst of emotion.
Your representatives here.
Forward. But as I look up, I see the rain coming down. That reminds me of what my grandmother used to say, these are God's tears. And this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice in it. We want to thank the Brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Friendship is essential to the soul. We want to thank all of the people that came out, from Keisha Knight Pulliam to Mr. and Mrs. Atchison, Sheila Frazier Atchison, Joe Torrey, all of those people that came out to support Mr. Cosby and came here to see the truth and hear the truth. On behalf of his family, we want to thank them. We want to thank our entire team, from our social media team, Kiel Wilson. We want to thank Debbie Meister, our tour manager. We want to thank Attorney Tom Larkin. But let's get to the best. Let's get to the best. Let's get to the greatest of all time attorneys that exist at this day and time. Let's hear from Attorney Angela Grusa, and then we will hear from the GOAT, Brian McMullen. So, Attorney Angela Grusa.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry, we can't. I wanted to say today was very important. We have worked very hard to present a case to this court, to this jury, to these 12 people who worked tirelessly to listen. This is what happens. Juries are stuck. When a prosecutor seeks to put someone in prison for things that are simply not presented in the courtroom. And the jury stuck to what they were asked to do, and that is to review the evidence before them, and there simply wasn't enough. And we are grateful for the time that they put into it, and for the court in Allegheny and for the court here in Montgomery County to allowing this process to complete at least to this stage. So thank you.
Now we will hear from the guy who gave the most amazing closing and one of the top criminal attorneys in the world, And Johnny Cochran is smiling down Attorney Brian McMonagle.
No, but that build up. I just want to thank the court, the people of Montgomery County. This court system was tremendous. The people of Pittsburgh that came here and deliberated long and hard over days, 52 hours of deliberations. The judge is right. Justice is real. It lives here in Montgomery County. I'm proud to have been able to represent Mr. Cosby. We came here looking for an acquittal, but like that Rolling Stone song says, you don't always get what you want. Sometimes you get what you need. God bless you all, and happy Father's Day.
Mr. Cosby, how do you feel? Mr. Cosby, how do you feel?
Any comment, Mr. Cosby?
Okay. Tom, please.
Mr. Cosby, you have
Turn it, Tom.
How do you feel?
Please go, Tom. All right, everyone. We want to get the attorneys out the ring. Right now, I am going to introduce my associate with Purpose PR firm. She's going to read a signed statement from Mrs. Camille Cosby.
How do I describe the district attorney? Heinous. How do I describe many, but not all, general media, blatantly vicious entities that continually disseminated intentional omissions of truth for the primary purpose of greedily selling sensationalism at the expense of a human life? Historically, people have challenged injustices. I am grateful to any of the jurors who tenaciously fought to review the evidence, which is the rightful way to make a sound decision. Ultimately, that is a manifestation of justice based on facts, not lies. As a very special friend once stated, truth can be subdued but not destroyed. Moreover, I express humongous gratitude to counselors Brian McMonagle and Angela Agrusa for their hard work, Mr. McMonagle for his passionate and powerful articulation of truth, Mr. Agrusa for her thorough research to bolster Counsel McMonagle, to Mr. Andrew Wyatt for his unequivocal skills in public relations, to our team who work diligently and intelligently, to our staff for their continuous commitment to our family and me, and to our children, grandchildren, and other family who loves us, and to our dear friends and supporters who never gave up on us despite it all, Camille Cosby.
Thank you. And before questions, before we leave, I want to say something in the words of Huey P. Newton. Power is the ability to define phenomenon, making it act in a designed manner. Power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in a designed manner. Mr. Cosby, power is back. It's back. It has been restored. The jurors, they use their power to speak. And Mrs. Cosby, power is back. So the legacy didn't go anywhere. It has been restored. And for all those attorneys who conspired, like Gloria Allred, tell them to go back to law school and take another class. Thank you.
All right, so there you had the words of Andrew Wyatt, the Bill Cosby's long-term PR representative, and a couple of the attorneys, Angela Agrusa and Brian McMonagle. Do we have still have
from WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network? We have special programming. Bill Cosby, from most loved to most toxic figure in Hollywood. On the 18th of June 2017, Bill Cosby's trial ended in a mistrial. And we'll look at the case, how it was set up by his defense team. We just heard from Mr. Wyatt. He is his publicity expert, persuader of persuaders. And it was interesting. He closes up with a quote from Huey P. Newton. Huey P. Newton, as most people know, was a member of the Black Panther Party. But beyond that, he was one of the most astute political tacticians of his time. And his last book, and I think it was called Revolutionary Consciousness, or something of that nature. Read it a long time ago. Huey P. Newton was a man that had a PhD, a very articulate man, very astute man, adroit, we'll use that term for Huey P. Newton. But Bill Cosby, a man that was loved at one time, the polling said, by about 90% or more of the American people. He was a man that rescued the television network NBC. NBC was ratings were below the other two major stations. Now this was at a different time. We did not have the influence of various so-called cable networks at that time. Cable news was around, but the cable networks now, various the Netflix were not out there, etc., that produced their own presentations and movie presentations, shows, etc. And it was kind of interesting that Bill Cosby was scheduled to have a special on Netflix that was withdrawn because of the various trials. Well, what we'll do here is look at the stratagem of the defense team, what they were trying to accomplish. But before we do that, since things are not done in a vacuum, the one thing from us at this mic that influenced Bill Cosby's trial more than anything else, the name was DJ Trump. On both sides. What DJ Trump did was he influenced the whole paradigm of how quote-unquote news is reported, sensational or not. If you recall the what was it, Accent Hollywood, get it right in a minute here, Accent Hollywood video there, what they were trying to do was use persuasion or propaganda to influence the voters in an adverse way against DJ Trump. But it did not work. And the reason it did not work, DJ Trump had his core supporters, and his core supporters stayed obviously with him. As DJ Trump once said, he could literally murder someone on Fifth Avenue, and his supporters would still support him, which was turned out to be factual in the history of fake news. But there were cases that the sensation was able to get the best, particularly when a race is involved. And we don't need to go back to Emmett Till. But the point is the what they call the trial of the century, the People versus Arnfeld James Simpson, O.J. Simpson. They were able to turn that case into a race case. No, it was not Johnny Cochran. Time magazine colored O.J. darker, trying to line him up as the criminal of the year, the criminal of the century. It did not work out. The evidence overcame that, and of course, then you had the division, as my friend Carla says, between quote-unquote black and white, and not simply in black and white, that the African was put out to be the villain. And this was moved on to the Million Man March, in which precipitated the election of one Barack Obama. Barack Obama becoming the first African American president. He was reelected 2 times. But the amicus against Barack Obama no doubt set the stage for what happened to Bill Cosby. And the sensation around it, they tried to turn it into the mini trial of the century. But today, with all of the things going on, it was hard for them to get their megaphone going there, because we have various machinations in Washington with the Trump administration and also the draconian programs there that people literally fear their life will be in jeopardy because of health care. And the number of other things going on there made this trial a different kind of trial. Yes, there were campaigners, the Gloria Allred there and various others, her marketing efforts put out there 60 or so women coming forward with various cases. But the one case was a woman named Angela Comstock. She had been a worker at the Temple University, which Mr. Cosby was on the board there. And they had a relationship, there's no denying that. And a series of, not just a one-night stand, but a series of relationships transpired between them. Numerous telephone calls, etc., communications, gifts, and what have you, and exploitation. This case was reported to the authorities, and the former district attorney reviewed the case and felt that it was a very weak case because of the matter of time. In other words, it was not filed timely. Most of these types of cases are filed within hours and many within just a few days, where there is any type of criminal activity alleged. But it did go to a civil case, and the civil case was settled. Now, this is one of the things an attorney always looks at. In a civil case, you have usually a civil litigator, but you can also have a /civil criminal or criminal /civil litigator. And one of the things you look out for there, you go into a civil case, if there's potential criminal culpability coming up, how do you deal with that? And you deal with it very, very carefully because you're walking on eggs and things can go wrong, especially if the sealed depositions that are taken are one day unsealed and used in a criminal matter there. Now, there are instances we've been involved in personally where our civil case was set up to circumvent a criminal case. It was not set up to obstruct justice, but it was set up to highlight the actors in the case, and that has happened many times also. But with Bill Cosby, yes, this civil case did go on, and at the end of the mistrial there in Norristown, PA, the district attorney announced that he would seek a retrial. 120 days there, 4-month vacuum, and that would be within a year. There are all kinds of machinations that come up with the second trial. How do you cast it differently? The jury pool, of course, had been expanded all the way to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, where the courthouse setting there was about, 16, 17 kilometers from where the project where Bill Cosby once resided in North Philadelphia. So this is one of the things that comes out here in this long trial, when you hear that, 60 women have had similar situations, but you have to remember, in that trial they were focused on Comstock, and one of a person was permitted to testify in the trial, but the elephant in the room was DJ Trump, no doubt about that. Let's just get to some of what happened here. You heard the summaries from the defense, their team there, but from Angela Gusser, been pronounced various ways. She gave an interview to the Hollywood Reporter, an extensive interview there. She talked about what their stratagem would be. It would involve a theory of false memory creation, and that would be winning acquittal from what they quote here as the most toxic figure in Hollywood, a challenge to change the optics. Criminal defense attorneys always do this, and this is basically back even to Sigmund Freud here, and a classic. I have to be reminded of this. Of the word here, he wrote his ideology. Anyway, ideology of hysteria. That's what Freud wrote. Now, this was in Uber Day, Ideology Day, Hysteria, by Sigmund Freud. That was in 1896. And it further applies here to the whole idea here of how the attorney, Augusta, would take this in, that she would use this particular phenomenon to move her case along. And she was able to do this using that theory. Now, again, defense attorneys usually like to come up with something. So false creation here, for most people, and I'll just quote a little bit of this, Bill Cosby lost his presumption of innocence dozens of accusers ago in the 13 years since he invited Angela Constadt, she was 31 years old at the time, to his home in Elkin, Pennsylvania. And he was the highest paid person. People all know that about him. And the episode here, people also know about that. But I can't identify any one case in which the public has so conclusively came to a verdict of guilty. This is from Angela Accuser here, along with Brian Monteledge. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name correctly. Is defending him. Concept is the first and so far only prosecution witness to emerge. There was one other. This was written before the trial was to begin. If convicted, he get 30 years in prison. Well, he's 79 years old. That's another very important thing. But how they constructed this had little publicity since October of 2014, when a stand-up comedian. Now this was a plant here. Hannibal Buress encouraged the people to Google Bill Cosby rape, brought about attention to accusations of Constadt and others. And that's when the Netflix deal disappeared. NBC killed a sitcom it was developing for Cosby. So a number of things happened here in this whole situation. This defense attorney came from Orange County Loyola Law School. There, interned with the ACLU, went to corporate law, a little bit of what is happening here. And, of course, he switched, this is Bill Cosby, legal teams to Accuser, and on a recommendation of one of the partners in one of his law, one of the law firms. She's one of the top survey of 65 top entertainment lawyers. Well, that wouldn't matter. 83% said they wouldn't take on Cosby's case, but they're not criminal lawyers. He's involved by her peers, no doubt about that. She took on the case and did a very good job of it. And various other people, somebody named McKee came, a former LA talk host, who accused him of raping her back in 1974. Now, a lot of these charges are brought about from many, many years ago, and on the Jane Doe names, etc., is what out there. But the most, I suppose you say, most damning situation here was a deposition that he gave in the Comstock manner. But this is in Montgomery County. The guy's name was Steve O'Neill, and you heard the from Mr. Cosby's media person, the statement from his wife Camille, on the judge and on the media in general. Period. There. Now they had some rulings that would favor them, even from O'Neill has yet to explain his reasoning. It's likely the judge will allow testimony from, I suppose, Casey, because her assault was relatively recent. And I think she was the only one that was allowed to testify on the basis of O'Neill's prior bad acts decision. Cosby's lawyers are now seeking to exclude the most damaging portions of his civil deposition. Well, the civil deposition being what it was one of those situations that how much weight it had, how much weight it didn't have, we don't know. Accuser has taken a different approach to pushing back against the accusers, mindful of the public's belief that the high number of women is the most damning evidence against her client. She points to lots of literature about how memory can be distorted by news events, meaning women may have been influenced by the headlines they saw, and that's back to our theory there, and back to some of literally Sigmund Freud's research The team may present some discussions about what psychologists call false memory creation. When they respond to Casey's testimonies, not only would it be a way to subvert the allegations stemming from probable interaction between Cosby and many female accusers, but also a gentler approach when directly calling the women liars. In the old days, if you're defending in a date rape case or a rape case, etc., obviously you would focus on the woman, as what we saw in the Philando Castile. The attorneys there representing Geronimo, what was his last name? Anyway, the murderer in that particular case focused only on Mr. Castile, who had been murdered. His conduct, saying that he was on drugs, etc., or marijuana, actually. But again, they didn't said any so-called scientific evidence, even pseudoscience, to say that marijuana would have made him more aggressive. When the man, in fact, was reaching for his wallet, he was shot through his hand. Those kinds of things. He had cargo pants on with a weapon that he had a permit to carry. I was talking to a lady that had one of those weapon permits, and she was explaining to me the ins and outs of it, but it was so far in his pants that he could not have reached for it in the first place. So these are some of the things out here. We were inspired in this program, incidentally, by Professor Reed out of Berkeley, Berkeley/Oakland, California. And that is one of the things, and I read the thing also from his daughter, Tennessee, is looking to promote sympathetic voices in a letter provided to the Hollywood Reporter's youngest daughter, Evan Cosby. She's 40. Argued her father had been the victim of a media witch hunt. My dear father tried to defend himself. Right. His lawyers tried to defend him, but they all got sued. People were constantly reaching out to me about why doesn't your father say something? I keep saying he's trying, but the media is only interested in stories of women. No doubt about this. And this is what when we started this, the broadcast here, talking about how media propaganda is handled. But this is this story is a little bit different. It wasn't as blatant in OJ's. Well, of course, some people wrote books there prior to it, or actually were in the National Choir. They were paid to do it, and they were excluded by Judge Ito. But it also, Ito and some others wanted to cash in. I think Judge Ito was finally retired now. And others did cash in, Clark, etc. And many more people made millions of dollars off of the OJ trial. Well, the same thing here. But now what you have social media, as Professor Reed has pointed out, the CNNs of the world, various other of these so-called network powerhouses, and on Twitter, we were looking at some of the Twitters there, how they were coming out to fan the flames. But the flames have been muted by the times in which we live, and the elephant in the room, as we said before, DJ Trump. Let me just finish this up here. She adds, I know my father loves me, loves my sisters, my mother. Incidentally, his son, Ethan, I believe his name was brutally murdered right after the O.J. trial by a white supremacist. Very suspicious there. And also it's well known that Bill Cosby was the man that bankrolled much of O.J. Simpson's defense, and he was never forgiven for that. We don't have to go to these theories that they talk about. He was in line to buy NBC network. He was, and they said, well, okay, his network was only $400 million. Well, that is obviously much more than DJ Trump's, but and NBC was at, I don't know, 10 or how many billion dollars it was. It ended up being bought by the Comcast people. But these things are leveraged, and they had Goldman Sachs involved, etc. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It matters about how much money you can get together to do a buy. And then based upon what the target is worth, money can be raised and leveraged against that. You look at the recent acquisition by Amazon of the Whole Foods organization, and for how many $1 billion up there. That did not mean that Amazon had to put up the $10 billion. What they did was they took what Whole Foods was worth, raised the stock price of it, and gave a premium, and now they'll be able to get that. Now it's going to lose some money, but eventually they will fold that into their business model. This is how those kinds of things work out. So this has worked out. This particular trial and retrial, what will they do for the retrial? How will it be retried? But the other problem that you have here is that the District Attorney Stewart ran actually on a platform of trying Bill Cosby. In other words, race was dominant in his whole campaign. And if anyone looks at this from that standpoint, you can understand what his motive is. That's why he wants to do a retrial. That may not be the best stratagem, because these attorneys are smart. And they understand that they need to reshape some things for the run-up for the next trial, and Angela Accusers will do that, and their team, they will start projecting positive images from on Mr. Cosby. Now, this is one of the things that happens, and this is what Trump's people did brilliantly in the Access Hollywood. They just said, well, okay, that's, and his wife said, well, it was boy talk, and they forgot about it, and Professor Reed always asked, well, when are they going to litigate against DJ Trump? Well, the problem is DJ Trump has been in hundreds and actually thousands of litigations. He's not a target. In fact, he's suing some of the women. Now, this in itself will be a very interesting situation coming about here as to how this is hammered in. So don't be, as they say, awed by the news, period, that comes out. Now, this is from the Washington Post, and we'll end this and we'll go to Georgia. Anyway, the 6 race down there, sex assault trials ended with a mistrial. These people believe. Anyway, this is a conspiracy thing. Won't spend any time on it. That was the NBC situation there. The P. Daddy said, so when Bill Cosby was trying to buy his way into NBC, all of a sudden all these women want to come forward as rape victims. And this is P. Daddy speaking there. P. Daddy knows that. The late great Johnny Cochran defended him out there. So this is one of those situations that it is out there. Beliefs are different. We looked at it from various angles here. From what the New York Times had to say about it, they confirmed it. I won't spend as much time here, that as let's see, Clifford Huxleby, let's see, 8 years on NBC, Cosby was capable of delivering everything from babies to home-spun humor. But one thing he can't deliver, Hollywood and Wall Street sources say, is a deal giving him control of his network home. Now, this was from, I believe this is the Wall Street Journal here? No, it's the LA Times. But anyway, at that time, GE owned it, and of course they unloaded the network with the help of investment bank Goldman Sachs. That was reported from the Wall Street Journal. If it was reported from the Wall Street Journal, it was factual. What Cryptic Response did is how the comedian would raise the money needed to pull off, and at this time, $3.5 to a $4 billion deal. Well, that can be done. They have his net worth here at the LA Times. You can see how biased this is. He's worth $400,000. They have him at 300 million. They had him. They have him 300, 400 million. Well, again, that's leverage. That can be done. It doesn't really matter there, but it was done. But they went to. And this is at a time when Jack Welch was still there. ABC programming with GE, trying to figure out how to get this done, and no shortage of parties trying to facilitate such a deal. After it surfaced last fall, comedians' interests were deluged with calls from Goldman Sachs, Bear Stearns, who no longer in the game, Salmon Brothers, let's see here, Lehman Brothers, anyway, and organization we had a relationship one time, Chicago's Continental Bank. Well, they are, as one would say, not in the game these days. This was 1993 when this was out there, and 1993 is gone. Let's go to Georgia now, and Mr. John Alsop and Karen handles a race down in Georgia. And we'll just briefly do this. Well, that's a special program. This is a channel, Fox News. Race is too close to call, according to them. Less than 1% represent them. Next week we'll have a special program on this. He's at 49.7. She's at 49.4. Less than 3% of the voters are undecided. So that is about as close as you can get in early voting. John Alsop is leading in early voting. And if we can get this, 143,300 people have cast ballots by the end of early voting. That was on Friday. That's 150% increase there, and it's unprecedented for this type of election. And that's from Fulton County, where 80,000 of those early ballots were cast. So that's roughly a little over half of them were there in Fulton County. This is interesting. So John Alsop's probably leading in that. But again, this poll found that he was leading in, at least of their survey, leading in the early voting. But she was leading that. Now, Landmark, their person there, Mark Roundtree, you heard him in our report. Turnout, he's predicting to be, 240,000. They had 235,000. Majority probably voting in early voting there. So it's a situation that he puts as a toss-up. Landmarks, of course, is a Republican House there. 25% of the early voters turned out in DeKalb County. And 32,400 voted. So election day says more than 23% of registered voters have been issued ballots. That was in Cobb County. So that's in some of these counties that they expect the regular voters on election day to favor a handle. So they're all working on a turnout game. We'll have that in our special report. And we've had the 2% lead, I think, when he had. This is the Landmarks poll itself, the Republican poll. He's now at 49.7, and she's at 48. That's 1.7 there on the lead from Landmark. And this poll was on the 17th. So in other words, it's all in the margin of error. No matter where you go with this election, it'll all be about literally turnout. Anyway, let's do the sports, and we'll end up this part of our presentation. On this date in 2000, Tiger Woods won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. We were there looking at it. One of those things, it was the first of 4 consecutive major wins for Tiger. The Tiger Grand Slam, as it was called there. He had 20 years ago, 1997, won the Masters. Remember that? That was when Fuzzy Zeller Asked him, was he going to have what was it, fried chicken and greens? That was where they were 20 years ago. So Tiger Woods goes down in the history because of how he won that Open there, won by 15 strokes. And one of his records there, Tiger Woods. Let's do the baseball. The White Sox were in Toronto, 5-2 Sox over the Blue Jays. Cleveland was in the Twin Cities. They played a doubleheader there. Cleveland 9-3 out of this first game, obviously. The Giants and the Rockies. Rockies 5-1. The Cardinals were in Camden Yard. The Orioles are 15-7 as to Oakland. The Athletics pulled it out 5-2. The D-backs in Philly. Diamondbacks 5-1 over the Phils. The Rays were in Motor City. Rays 3-2 over the Tigers. And in 11, the Padres and Brewers in Milwaukee. Padres 7-5. And in 10, the Marlins were in Atlanta. Atlanta 8-7, very close game there. Line score 10 hits, no errors for the Marlins, and 16 hits, no errors for the Atlanta. The Dodgers were in Cincinnati. Dodgers 10-2 there. Mr. Rehu was Engine Rehu was the winner. The Nationals were in New York. The Nationals 7-4. Dr. Blatantly was reasonably happy there. Bernanke, I hope. Anyway, the Mariners were in Texas. Rangers 10-4. Cleveland in the second game in the Twin Cities 6-2 over the Twins. So they won the both games of doubleheader. It was a rain delay there. I saw that in there. The Red Sox were in Houston. The Astros 7-1. Another game we tuned into. And the Cubbies were in Pittsburgh. Pirates 4-3 there. Mr. Arrieta was a loser. And so it goes for the sports. We'll see you on this particular program, Boston Red, on the Monday morning quarterback. And Numbers Man will pop out today, and so will the open source report from WBRN Radio. Have a good rest of your weekend, everyone, on the 18th of July, 2017. The episode was Bill Cosby, from most loved to most toxic figure in Hollywood. Good day.